WSTG-TV.
Hello, welcome again to Our Future. My name is Marcus, still here with you today again. I do not have my host here with me today, but I do have a lovely guest for you today. His name is Reginald Lawrence, but no one knows him by that name. He goes by his theater name, which is Shipsu Aku. How you doing today, Mr. Shipsu?
It was pretty close, man. Shepsu A.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. Sometimes in the world, particularly when you take a name nobody can pronounce, this is what happens to you. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine.
How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to use my handy dandy napkins because I'm already feeling the pressure from your questions. No, I'm very, very glad to be here, man. I'll always happy to have an opportunity to talk about the arts and the things that bring us into the business. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much for even taking the time out your day to come in and sit with me.
Pleasure.
So, what do you do? Let's get started right into that. What do you do?
Well, my wife would want me to say right off the top that I am a husband and a father.
That's amazing.
But as neither one of those pays the bill, what I do for a living is I'm a writer. I write in, well, let's be fair. I'm a writer and producer, and mostly I work in the industry around creative storytelling. So that works in theater, also works in television and film, and occasionally a little work in commercials. So, I write. I tell stories for a living.
Okay, so what drew you to that? What made you want to do that?
So it's funny you asked the question because I actually get asked this question a lot, and my answer is incredibly common. I was raised an only child. My mother.
Me as well.
See, you understand
See,
where I'm
I
at.
know-
So
I know how
this
you
is what
feel.
I'm saying, right? So as a kid, I won't give my whole age, but I will say it was in the age of the '70s where we had 4 channels, and that would have required us to have a TV to get those 4 channels.
Right.
And my mother was working 3 or 4 jobs at a time, so I spent a lot of time alone when I wasn't hanging out with my cousins. And your imagination just
Goes
runs
everywhere.
wild. I used to do race cars. Only we didn't have race cars, so my mother always had bid whist tournaments on Friday nights with her friends. I would take those same playing cars, lay them out on the floor, and do whole racetracks with cars. My favorite TV show at the time was called Speed Racer. It's before anybody else's time. But know that I loved me some Speed Racer. You could get Speed Racer. So the number 5 playing card was my Mach 5. And I would drive that across the living room. Number 9, that was his brother, Racer X.
I know.
And we would ride through the house. This is the way I amuse myself. And that imagination just comes in handy for pretty much every facet of what I do.
And it
Frequently,
just carried on with you.
people ask you to make up things for worlds that don't exist or worlds that only exist in somebody's imagination. And your job is to figure out how to not only make that world be alive, but make the person who's watching it feel through it. And you got to be able to do 2 things: tap your own humanity really big, and 2, let your imagination run wild. And I didn't realize it at the time that I was being primed for this particular
You were just kind of
vocation.
living life.
Dude, I living life. I was a kid at home trying to kill time.
Right. I know the
And
feeling.
that, and later on we'll talk about the race cars that came with my life game that I also used to race around the house. That's another story for another time.
So, growing up, you said you were only child. I definitely know that feeling. Everybody has something that inspired them to, be the person they was today or get them to the career that they take place today. So what inspired you?
It's really interesting. So there's 2 or 3 really important things in your life as a creative, and one of those things is learning the power of the human voice, right? So this is my key. I'm gonna tell everybody this is my key. If you're a smart kid, and I mean really smart, you learn how to be quiet at the right time. So my mom would have her friends over. Sometimes we'd be sitting on the back porch, and the aunts and the uncles would be there. And then it's story time. We called it the olden days. Now, it turns out the olden days was about 10 years before I was on that back porch. But to me, I'm 7. That's eons. You sit on the back porch, you keep your mouth shut. You don't ask for nothing, you don't get up for nothing, and they forget you're there. And that's when all the magical stories start
You
happening.
hear all the news.
All the things that 7-year-olds
What
should never hear.
What auntie and uncle was
That's
doing.
what I'm saying. And that's the probably the single most important thing. I also had a cousin whose great gift in life was teaching me the power of telling the story. So he was very good at drawing. He would draw fabulous stories, fabulous characters on lined school paper, cut them out, and then entertain us in the back of the house like our own little paper doll puppet show. And that was the whole world to me, man. That guy, his name is Donald. We call him Dunny. And Donald Jackson was my absolute entree into what you could do just letting your mind run wild. And that's what got me going.
That's good. You know, as only child, you kind of grew up a little bit quicker, because it's just you. You kind of mature a little bit. Is that the same for you? I know that's how it was.
I was the most immature child
Oh,
in the
really?
world. Man, if it was something to be silly about, I was silly about it. We moved a lot, so the whole situation was every school meant a new chance to make new friends, and nothing makes friends quite as much as the kid who's silly.
Right.
That was my thing. And I was a very good student, so that can get you in trouble sometimes.
Right.
So the thing you need to balance off being a good student is also being the class clown. So I was the guy who sadly figured out school very quickly, and then the rest of the day was my day to play and be silly. And unfortunately, the rest of the class sometimes didn't get their whole lesson out of that. So,
Right, you get your lesson, you think it's done, but that's not the same for everybody else.
Yeah.
I was the same.
School was playground for me. It absolutely was. It was.
Not a lot of friends, got to hang out and just have fun.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Well, these first 2 questions have been great. We are going to take a quick little break, and we'll come right back, and I have some more questions for you.
Okay, I'll be right here. I got no place else to go.
No
until
place
this
else
show
to go.
is
Look,
over.
we're here.
This is my whole life right now.
Great. Thank you for being here with me.
No problem.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll have a quick break from our sponsors. Thank you.
When I told my friends I wanted to become an astronaut, they laughed and called me a space cadet. Fortunately, my parents took me seriously. They enrolled me in Gary Community Schools where I had STEM summer camp, dual credit classes, and certified teachers. Now, I'm a Lilly Scholar and my folks are all over the moon.
Gary Schools. Strong, resilient, built for education.
When you join the Army, the first thing they teach you is how to get in line. Not exactly the same in high school. When I enrolled in Westside Leadership Academy and joined ROTC, the first thing I learned was respect. Not just for God and country, but for myself.
Gary Schools. Strong, resilient, built for education.
And we are back here on Our Future, and still me, Marcus Steele Jr., here with our lovely guests. So I have a couple more questions for you as long as you're ready to go.
Fire away, man.
Okay. So you did bring up theater and everything and how that is kind of where you're at right now. So what got you into theater itself?
So theater's my second discipline. I actually started in dance.
Okay. How did that start, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, dance, it was easy. I was mesmerized by a young Debbie Allen and a Gene Anthony Ray on a television show called Fame. So for those of you who don't have context, I'm going to set the table for you. Fame was my generation's high school musical, or what was the other one they had on Fox? I can't remember. Glee.
Oh, Glee.
Right? So same basic premise, except that in this particular period, the 2 leads were black, and there was no such animal in my existence. So I turned on this show, and you had Debbie Allen and Gene Anthony Ray, Miss Grant and Leroy, who danced like nobody's business every week. And true story, I would be out playing basketball. This is a hood truth that I share today only because I wasn't the only one who did it. I would walk out of a basketball game and be like, Fame comes on in 7 minutes, and I'm going to run home. To watch this. You couldn't miss it because to me it was a whole world. I had never seen professional dance before. We've been taking the plays and stuff at school, but most kids go to plays resistantly. They're hesitant about it and you never quite submit to it. So I had never seen this, and most importantly on that end, I had never seen professional dancers. I'll repeat that. Most importantly, I had never seen black dancers on stage.
And I know that just had to be like
My mind was
astonishing.
blown.
Like you never
My
seen.
mind was literally blown, and I mean that figuratively. But yes, it was literally blown. I watched that every day, and then it just so happened that at my high school, the dance program was in a tiny little room, and we had to peek through the glass to watch dance. I'm 14 years old. It's my freshman year of high school. And the dance teacher, her name at the time was Cheryl McWhorter. Now her name is Ife McWhorter. She came to the door, and we're expecting to get yelled at because we're a bunch of teenage boys staring through the door. And she looked at me, and she used a little colorful language. I'll spare you that because, this is a family show.
Right.
She said to the effect, "Get away from my door," some extra words, "or get your tail in this room." And I was the only boy who was like, "Oh, we can go inside the room
You didn't know,
and
right?
dance?" I don't know nothing about dance, but I'm all about that. And that was it. And so she got us in the room. She was very happy to have us. It was the thing that was so incredible about that show, and the world has changed a lot since then, but black boys didn't dance.
I know.
It just was not a thing. We hadn't even gotten to the era of breakdance yet, which was 2 years away, where we were breakdancing in the street. So that invitation into that room, that show made all of that possible. And through her in that place, I got a chance to live in art in a way that I never would have before. And I danced until my high school career was over. Sadly, I was not professional dancer quality, but it did not mean they did not get my whole heart, because they totally did. So that's how I got to dance. How did I get to theater? That was the original question, right?
Yeah, so if you want to go ahead and talk about that too.
So I went off to college. I left a lovely little multicultural school in the middle of Chicago, and I went downstate Illinois to a campus that was not so multicultural, not so inclusive, and not very welcoming to my little chocolate self. And I spent a lot of time a little more than upset about that. And so I was what is now a cliche. I guess it was a cliche then too. I was the angry black kid at school. What I discovered is I wasn't the only angry black kid at school. So we were the black activists on campus doing the same stuff that everybody spent the last year in the streets doing here. And a show came to town called Serafina. The director of the Cultural Center, Bruce Nesbitt, gave us some tickets. We were like, I don't know what it is, but it's black and it's from Africa, we going. So we all went to see Serafina, and that show showed us the power of politics married to theater, which was different than the model we had been following, which was kind of a quasi-Malcolm X / Martin Luther King thing, where you just kind of stood in front of a microphone and said things that you thought were very profound that the world was not very interested in at the time. But theater, you could say all of those things as long as you could build a world for it to live in so people could see it and understand it.
And that's better with the visual purposes.
Yeah. And I had the whole toolkit. I had been studying my entire life. I didn't realize I was studying. But how to tell a story, how to put all of that stuff together, how to put angry black politics into play in the middle of those things, that was everything. And I've been doing theater. I was hooked at that point. We produced our first shows at school, and I have been doing theater for 30-some years continuously since then. So that's it. You can thank my cousin and Debbie Allen and a school full of racially insensitive people for where I am today.
So I'm going to ask one more question for you, then we're going to take our last break, okay?
Okay, fabulous.
So my last question for you is today that, do you work for a business or do you have your own company?
So the answer is right? I do have a theater company. I started a theater company when I was 5. Actually, we started before I got out of school. So while I was still in college, we started a theater company. Transferred it to Chicago, and thankfully that company's been running continuously, doing a full season for 30 years. In addition, I'm a writer, so I do a lot of freelance work. Occasionally I work for the West Side Theater Guild. I've written a few things here as well, and freelance through that. And then I also work in television as part of the Writers Guild. So yeah, I'm all of those things.
You definitely keep busy though as well.
Man, if you don't keep busy, you don't eat.
Right.
That's it. I mean, that's the thing that I learned most about. It's people call it a hustle because it is. So
Yeah. You know, you sit still and you get lost in your own thoughts, and that's something you don't want to do. So, well, thank you so much. We're going to take our last break, and then we're just going to wrap it up here with you. And still, thank you again. You know, it's just always a pleasure having our guest here.
I appreciate it. This is a message from our sponsors. Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah, a little quick message.
I'm sure they're amazing sponsors. Listen to what they have to say.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
My dance instructor at Woodside is pretty tough on me. I don't mind because I know she cares about my education and only wants what's best for me. That's why I enrolled in Gary Community Schools. Not simply to spend hour after hour working on toe pointing, but to be the best.
Gary Schools. Strong, resilient, built for education.
Hello, my name is Dr. Paige McNulty. I'm the manager for the Gary Community School Corporation, and I am pleased to be joined today with the Jackson 5 family members, Tito and Marlon Jackson.
Hi,
how are you? Thanks for being here today.
Again. Not only are we members of the world-famous Jackson 5, but we are proud products of the Gary Schools.
Growing up in Gary, our school system afforded great opportunities from academics to extracurricular activities.
And today is no different. This is why we encourage you to enroll your child in the Gary Schools today.
For more information, please call 219-881-5466 or visit garyschools.org. And please remember, enroll in Gary Schools today.
Yes,
right.
Definitely enroll.
Gary Schools.
Strong, resilient,
built for education.
Welcome back again. My name is Marcus Steele, of course. So we just have a couple more questions for our excellent guests here on today. So my next question for you is,
Yes, sir.
What is your favorite show that you've ever produced?
Oh, my goodness.
I know it's hard trying to narrow down to one, but what really stood out of all of them?
It's like your kids, man. You have to be careful.
Yeah, you don't want to say because you don't want to hurt nobody's feelings.
I'm going to tell y'all something right now. Every parent does have a favorite kid.
They just don't say it.
No. It's not what you think. It changes. So that's just your favorite kid this week. So if you have more than one child, your first child is probably your favorite while they're the ones that know how to wash dishes. But then once you move on to new skills, it changes. I just wanted to share that with everybody before we go forward.
I was the only child. I still wasn't the favorite.
Yeah.
So.
To be fair, that is a tragic story, my brother.
It happens.
Tragic. There's a biography in that. So favorite story is an interesting thing. So we've been working on so during COVID, we've been working on podcast plays, taking these plays that we produced for the last 30 years and converting them into the podcast format. And so I've had a chance to actually revisit shows that I've neither read nor heard for 15, 20 years at some point. And I have to tell you, the story that I most enjoyed doing, which is the way I'm going to interpret this question right now, is called Baseball Music, The Sweetest Sound. It was written by Linnell Sati Word, who passed away. The thing that's most notable about Linnell to your audience is he actually, during one of the lyrics shows that we did here a few years ago, the tribute to Michael Jackson, he was the voice of Michael Jackson. So in all the voiceover stuff. So Linnell passed away, but he wrote this play, and we had to go find it, like on a hard drive somewhere. It had died. Nobody knew where it was. And we got to bring that show back, put it together. Chuck Smith came over, who's a esteemed director in Chicago, and we got to piece that show together using Sati's original voiceovers from his show. We good?
Yeah, we're good.
All
Keep
right.
going.
So we got to use that from Sati's original voiceovers. We got some historical footage of some Negro League baseball games, and we also used live actors in that space. So in that world, I got to listen to Negro League baseball, the historic artifact, Sati, my friend who is now no longer with us, and the words that he had written all together in his open love letter to baseball, exploring Buck O'Neill's life.
Just even to get in there, and I know the people that knew him, just being able to still bring his work to life even after he had gone on.
It was pretty emotional. I mean, to be honest with you, I think everybody that worked on that recording actually knew him personally. So to hear his words, hear his setup for the show, it was pretty special. So that at the moment, it's like my favorite kid thing. at the moment,
Yeah.
that's the one.
But you gotta know you got.
Give me another week, I'll have a different answer. But
Right.
this week, that's the one. So,
Great.
yeah, absolutely.
What is your message to anybody out there that's thinking about doing drama or thinking about doing dance, or anybody that's just lost and really don't know what could be your message to them?
Never ask anybody what their message is. You don't know what you're going to get. The thing I could say about the arts is it is two things. One, the thing that was told to me was if you're good at anything else and can be happy doing that, do that. Because then you can still be happy.
Right.
The arts is the choice that you make if this is the only way you can be happy. Because it will test you in ways you don't know that you're prepared for, right? So if you don't have that drive, that this is the thing, I gotta do this thing, you're not gonna make it. It's like football players. People say they want to be professional football players. The answer is football the most important thing in your life? Because if it's not, you're not really gonna be what you need to be because you got to put in all of that work. The arts are the same way. It's not just I can sing well. It's not just my church loves me. It's not just my mother thinks I'm pretty. It's I want to work. I'm going to constantly work on my craft, and I'm going to stick through it through the tough times. So the last thing I'm going to say, mothers hate when I say this, but it's the truth. You can't go into the arts worrying about what your fallback is going to be. So I'll give you me as an example. So I went to school, have a master's degree in a field that I have never worked in. After 30 years, I'm feeling like I'm just ready for something to happen, right? But if I wanted to go back and fall back on my degree, that degree is 30 years old. I would have been better served getting the degree in what I'm doing, what I want to do, and sticking with that for the rest of my life.
Because everything changes. So the degree that you have, it may not, the career is still probably, it's so many different things you got to learn about. It's almost like you have to go to school again for the degree.
You do. If I had spent my time not worrying about my fallback, but investing that in my career, in my craft, my career would have probably moved along much quicker. I spent the first several years as a struggling artist learning how to be a writer because I didn't go to school to be a writer. That's the hard way. They have schools for it. There's ways for you to. So the answer is that should have been the thing that I doubled down on early. My path just took me longer to figure out that's what I should have been doing. So I didn't really start writing as a professional writer, so I was about 26 years old. And for most creatives, that's a late start.
And, you know, I've seen this thing. I watch a lot of motivational. That's why I love to watch that. You know, they say if you take the time that you use to create a plan B, is the time that you could be using to work on your plan A. And I think that's kind of what you were saying.
That's exactly it. It's you can't go in prepping for the failure. So, I mean, if I unpack the advice I got as a young person in the time we have left, everybody wanted me to do well, and they wanted to know that I was going to be okay, right? So to break that down into mother's language, she wanted me to leave the house, be successful, and not move back into the basement, right? So that's the goal. The answer is when you figure out, no matter how you do that, mom's going to be all right as long as you can take care of yourself, then you can fully commit to the thing that you want to do without worrying about whether or not you're going to disappoint anybody. And I know I'm out of time. So do what you got to do.
Thank you so much. You're not out of time. We got a few seconds left. But look, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure because like I always say, you could be anywhere doing anything else, but you're here with me, spending your time, just like, you know, shedding your light on your story. And I really appreciate that.
No, thanks for having me here. It's a joy to be on WST, what is it, West Side Theater Guild? WSTG-TV. Got it.
Thank you.
There we go. There's your plug.
Thank you again. It's always a pleasure having our guests. And tune in to our next episode. Thank you. This is Marcus Steele tuning out. Ciao.
WSTG-TV.